Clumsy girl, Vanessa sneered, her voice dripping with mockery. Since you've already made a mess, you might as well clean up after us. A humiliated woman, forced to wash dishes at a party, is about to witness a shocking turn of fate when her billionaire husband arrives, unleashing a storm of power, revenge, and buried secrets that will change everything. But we start the video. Let us know where you're watching this video. And if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe, Story Store, and please share your thoughts about this story in comment section. The deafening crash of porcelain plates echoed through the lavish dining hall, silencing the chatter and laughter in an instant. Sophie gasped, her breath catching in her throat as she watched the shattered pieces scatter across the pristine marble floor. A hush fell over the room, eyes darting toward her with a mixture of amusement and disdain. Clumsy girl, Vanessa sneered, her voice dripping with mockery. The hostess of the extravagant party stood near the head of the table, her crimson lips curving into a smirk. She wore elegance like a second skin, her diamond earrings catching the chandelier's glow. Sophie's hands trembled as she took a shaky step backward, her heels clicking softly against the floor. Her expensive dress, one she had painstakingly chosen for the occasion, was now damp with dishwater, the evidence of her humiliation clinging to her like a second skin. Vanessa's smirk deepened. Since you've already made a mess, you might as well clean up after us. Laughter rippled through the room, a chorus of cruel amusement. Sophie's cheeks burned, but she refused to let the tears brimming in her eyes fall. How had she ended up here, reduced to nothing more than a servant at a party she had been invited to as a guest? Just as she bent down to gather the broken shards, a sudden, piercing sound cut through the tension. The unmistakable screech of tires outside the grand estate sent a ripple of unease through the air. Murmurs replaced the laughter as heads turned toward the massive double doors at the entrance of the hall. A moment later, the doors swung open with an authoritative force. The butler, normally composed, stood frozen in shock. And then he stepped in. Tall, imposing. A presence that could command an entire room without a single word. Alexander Gray. The air thickened with unspoken curiosity and fear as his stormy gaze swept across the room before locking onto Sophie. Vanessa's smirk vanished, her face draining of color. She took a shaky step back. You know him." The chandelier's glow reflected off the sleek black limousine parked outside, its presence an ominous declaration. A sharply dressed chauffeur stepped out first, his movements precise as he adjusted his cap before opening the door. The partygoers leaned forward, anticipation crackling like static in the air. Then, from the darkness of the vehicle, he emerged. Alexander Gray. The name itself sent a jolt through the room. Tall, broad-shouldered, and exuding an air of effortless dominance, he strode forward with measured steps, the click of his Italian leather shoes the only sound in the stunned silence. His stormy gray eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned the room before settling on Sophie. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "That's Alexander Gray," someone whispered in awe. "What's he doing here?" Vanessa stiffened. The color had yet to return to her face as she turned toward Sophie, disbelief flickering in her eyes. You know him," she stammered, her confidence faltering. Sophie didn't respond. She couldn't. Her heart pounded as Alexander moved closer, his presence suffocating yet intoxicating. There was something unreadable in his expression, something dangerous. Then he spoke, his deep voice slicing through the silence like a blade. "Step away from my wife." A collective gasp swept through the room. Vanessa's lips parted, but no words came out. The once mocking guests exchanged shocked glances, realization dawning upon them like a slow-burning fire. Alexander's gaze flickered to Sophie, his fingers brushing the faint red mark on her wrist, a mark left by Vanessa's cruel grip. His eyes darkened. "Who dared to touch you?" Silence fell once more. No one moved. No one dared to breathe. The weight of Alexander's words settled over the room like an approaching storm. Every eye flickered between him and Sophie, anticipation and fear tangling in the thick air. Vanessa let out a brittle laugh, her fingers tightening around her champagne glass. "Oh, Sophie never mentioned she was married to you. Surely she was joking." Her voice was forced, the usual arrogance in her tone faltering under Alexander's unrelenting gaze. Alexander didn't blink. "Do I look like I'm joking?" His voice was low, dangerous. The tension tightened like a noose. Sophie's pulse roared in her ears. She had no idea what to say, what to do. This was spiraling out of control. Vanessa attempted to mask her unease with a smirk, but the fear was evident in her eyes. "How charming," she mused, though her voice wavered. "But surely a man like you wouldn't concern himself with a little accident like this." Alexander's gaze dropped to Sophie again. His fingers brushed against hers, the briefest touch igniting something electric. "When someone lays a hand on what's mine," he said, his voice quiet yet lethal, "I make it my concern." A nervous shuffle passed through the crowd. The once mocking guests were now uneasy, suddenly realizing they had laughed at the wrong person. Vanessa swallowed hard, attempting one last feeble retort. "Sophie, darling, you should have told us you had such powerful connections." Sophie opened her mouth, but Alexander cut in first. "She doesn't need to explain herself to you." The authority in his tone left no room for argument. Vanessa's grip on her glass tightened as she forced a stiff smile, but the tremor in her hand betrayed her. The room was no longer hers to control. Without another word, Alexander turned to Sophie and extended a hand. "Come." Her breath hitched. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to resist, to demand an explanation. But something about the way he looked at her, the unyielding certainty in his stormy eyes, made her fingers twitch before hesitantly reaching for his. As her hand slipped into his, the unspoken claim sealed itself, like a thunderclap in the silence. Silence stretched across the grand dining hall, thick with unspoken tension. Alexander Gray's stormy gaze swept the room, his fury barely restrained. He pulled out his phone with deliberate calm. "Effective immediately," he said, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. "I'm acquiring this property." Everyone out. Now. A collective gasp echoed as guests exchanged stunned glances. Vanessa's face drained of color. You can't do that," she sputtered. Alexander's smirk was cold, merciless. "I can," he replied smoothly, "and I just did." Vanessa stumbled forward, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her palms. "This house has been in my family for generations. You can't take it away from me over her." She shot a glare at Sophie, her voice laced with venom. Alexander stepped closer, his presence suffocating. "You humiliated my wife. Did you think there would be no consequences?" Vanessa's lip quivered, but she held her ground. "This isn't over," she whispered, her voice shaking. Alexander leaned in, his smirk deepening. "Oh, Vanessa," he murmured, "it was over the moment you touched what's mine." As security escorted the guests out, Sophie stood frozen. This wasn't just power. This was absolute control. Vanessa collapsed into a chair, her elegant posture crumbling under the weight of defeat. The laughter, the arrogance, gone. All that remained was disbelief. "You destroyed me," she whispered, her voice hollow. "For her?" Her eyes flicked to Sophie, burning with resentment. "She's nothing compared to—" "Careful," Alexander warned, his voice smooth but edged with danger. The way he stood, the way he owned the room even after taking everything from Vanessa, it was mesmerizing. Terrifying. Vanessa let out a broken laugh. "All this power, Alexander. And for what? A woman who probably doesn't even know who you really are." Sophie stiffened. Something about the way Vanessa said it, the smugness creeping back into her expression, sent a chill down her spine. "Vanessa, leave," Alexander ordered, his patience running razor thin. But Vanessa just smirked, a predator even in defeat. She stood, adjusting her dress with deliberate grace. "You think you've won?" Her gaze locked onto Sophie. "Sweetheart, you have no idea what you've married into." Sophie's heart pounded. "What do you mean?" Alexander's grip tightened around her waist. "Ignore her," he murmured, his voice low. "She's trying to get into your head." But Sophie wasn't sure. There was something in Vanessa's voice, a certainty, a secret she held close like a final weapon. Vanessa leaned in, her lips curving into a wicked smile. "Ask him about his past, if he dares to tell you the truth." And with that, she turned and walked out, leaving behind a silence far heavier than before. Sophie swallowed, her mind spinning. She turned to Alexander, searching his unreadable face. "Tell me she's lying," she whispered. Alexander said nothing, and that silence told her everything. As Vanessa was being led away, she didn't struggle. She didn't fight. Instead, she smirked, her eyes gleaming with something far more dangerous than anger, satisfaction. "You think you've won, Sophie?" she called over her shoulder. "You have no idea what you've married into." Sophie stiffened. The words slithered into her mind like poison. "What do you mean?" she demanded. Vanessa tilted her head, her smirk widening. "Oh, sweetheart," she purred. "Some ghosts refuse to stay buried." Alexander's arm tightened around Sophie's waist. "Ignore her," he murmured, his voice laced with warning. "She's trying to get inside your head." But Sophie wasn't so sure. There was something about Vanessa's certainty, the way she spoke as if she knew something Sophie didn't. As security finally escorted Vanessa out, Sophie turned to Alexander. What was she talking about? Alexander sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "She's playing mind games." "That wasn't just a game, Alexander," Sophie said, stepping away from him. "She knows something about you, about us." His jaw clenched. "Let it go, Sophie." But she couldn't. As they stepped into the limousine, Vanessa's words replayed in Sophie's mind. Some ghosts refused to stay buried. And something told her one of them was sitting right beside her. The limousine's interior was silent, save for the distant hum of the city outside. Sophie sat beside Alexander, but for the first time she felt miles away from him. She turned to him, her heart hammering. "Tell me the truth." Alexander exhaled, running a hand through his dark hair. "Sophie, let it go." "No," she said firmly, "not this time." His stormy eyes locked onto hers. For a moment he looked like he wanted to argue. Instead he sighed. "There are things about my past you don't know." Sophie swallowed hard. "Then start talking." He looked away, staring out the tinted window. "Before I met you, I wasn't just a businessman. I built my empire on more than just boardroom deals." He paused, as if searching for the right words. And Vanessa's family, they weren't just old acquaintances. They were enemies. Sophie's breath hitched. "Enemies?" Alexander's expression darkened. "Vanessa's father and I had unfinished business. He wasn't just a rival, he was dangerous, and now it seems she's picked up where he left off. Sophie's stomach twisted. And you never thought to tell me this? I was protecting you. She shook her head. No, Alexander. You were keeping me in the dark. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. For the first time, she wasn't sure if she was sitting next to her husband or a stranger. Sophie's fingers curled into fists as she stared at Alexander. The man she married, the man she thought she knew, was unraveling before her eyes. Vanessa's family was more than just dangerous, Alexander admitted, his voice low. Her father ran an empire built on corruption, blackmail, and power plays that destroyed lives. I did what I had to do to survive. Sophie's pulse quickened. And what exactly did you do? He hesitated, his jaw tightening. I made a deal, one that put me in control and destroyed him. Sophie felt the weight of his words settle over her. You destroyed him, she echoed. I took everything, his business, his wealth, his reputation. He exhaled. He didn't take it well. She swallowed hard. What happened to him? Alexander's gaze darkened. He disappeared. Silence stretched between them. Sophie's stomach twisted. And now Vanessa wants revenge. Alexander nodded. She's been waiting for her moment, and now she has it. Sophie's mind raced. She wasn't just caught in a battle of power. She was married to a man who had built his empire on something far more dangerous than money. And Vanessa wasn't finished with them. She was just getting started. The next morning, Sophie woke to an uneasy silence. The air in the mansion felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding secrets. Then the knock came. A single envelope lay on the doorstep, sealed with red wax. No return address, no name, just a message inside, written in sharp, deliberate strokes. You took my home. Now I'll take yours. Sophie's breath hitched. She turned to Alexander, who read the words without flinching. Instead, his lips curved into a cold, knowing smirk. She's making her move, he murmured. Sophie clenched the letter. And you're not worried? She wants me to be. He turned to her, his expression unreadable. Vanessa isn't playing fair, but neither do I. Sophie's unease deepened. What is she planning? Alexander's phone buzzed. He checked the screen, his smirk vanishing. She's already started. Sophie leaned over. The news headline made her stomach drop. Billionaire Alexander Gray, under investigation. Fraud allegations surface. She looked at him in horror. Alexander, what did you do? But he didn't answer, because for the first time, someone had made a move he hadn't predicted. Sophie felt the walls closing in. The morning headlines had set fire to their world, and Vanessa was standing in the smoke, smiling. You thought she'd come after me, Sophie whispered, gripping the newspaper. But she's tearing you down first. Alexander's expression was unreadable. I underestimated how far she'd go. Sophie's phone buzzed. A message. You married a liar. How much do you really know about him? Her blood turned to ice. She's turning your allies against you, she said. The board, investors, they're doubting you now. Alexander exhaled slowly. That's her game. He clenched his fists. She wants you to doubt me, too. Sophie searched his face, uncertainty creeping in. Should I? For the first time, Alexander hesitated. I've made enemies, Sophie. But everything I did was to protect what's mine. She wanted to believe him, but the cracks were showing. Vanessa wasn't just after revenge. She wanted to dismantle everything Alexander built, and Sophie wasn't sure if they could stop her. Alexander wasn't a man who backed down. If Vanessa wanted war, she would get one. She's using manipulation, he said. I'll use strategy. Sophie watched as he made call after call, pulling every string he had left. But was it enough? Then an invitation arrived, Vanessa's doing. A gala, a trap. "She wants us there," Sophie murmured. Alexander smirked. "Then let's give her a show." At the gala, Vanessa greeted them with a glass of champagne and a wicked smile. "Lovely of you to come," she purred. Sophie met her gaze, something new burning inside her. She wasn't just here as Alexander's wife. She was ready to fight. The gala shimmered with wealth and deception, but Sophie saw through the illusion. This wasn't just a party, it was a battlefield. And tonight, Vanessa would lose. Alexander stood beside her, composed as ever, but Sophie could feel the tension in his grip. Vanessa was playing her final card, but she had underestimated them. As Vanessa raised her glass, the room fell silent. "To the fall of false kings," she said, eyes locked on Alexander. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Sophie stepped forward before Alexander could react. "And to the queens who rise in their place," she countered, her voice calm but cutting. Vanessa's smirk faltered. Just then, Alexander's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and smiled. A predator who had just won the hunt. "Vanessa," he said smoothly, "I hope you enjoyed your last game." He turned the phone toward her, revealing breaking news. Authorities investigate Vanessa Sinclair for fraud and embezzlement. Her face drained of color. Sophie leaned in. "You came for us, but you forgot one thing." Vanessa swallowed hard. "What?" Sophie smiled. "We always win." As security closed in, Alexander took Sophie's hand, and together they walked out, stronger than ever.